Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Cardano and its native token ADA. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and go stake your ADA with the Into the Cryptoverse stake pools, which you can find more information on how to do that in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, all bear markets for cryptocurrencies are fairly brutal. And one thing that you need to remember, no matter how much you like your project, you like your altcoin, no matter how great or not great the fundamental developments are, the general direction is down during a Bitcoin bear market. However, we can learn some things about just how brutal the bear markets are and to see simply if the cryptocurrency is performing better or worse than it did during the prior bear market. Now, this chart here shows the normalized ROI of ADA as measured from the peak until the bottom. Okay, so because ADA hasn't really been around that long, we only have one prior bear market, at least long bear market, that we can really look at. And what you'll notice is that the bear market more or less bottomed out in December 2018. However, because of the drop that occurred in March 2020 when everything just got washed out really, really quickly, we know we technically set a slightly lower low for just like an hour or something. But what you'll notice is that this was the accumulation phase for the bull market that eventually came after it. Okay, that's what we can at least point to and say, look, this was the accumulation phase. What I find interesting is despite the fact that we know ADA is down significantly from the prior all-time high, it's not as bad as it was, not even close really to where it was back in 2018 in terms of how quickly it went down. If you look at the normalized ROI from the peak, from the first bear market and then the one we're currently in, you can see that the first one went down quite a bit quicker. And that's despite the fact that the macroeconomic outlook back then was actually a bit better than it is today. And by a bit better, I mean a lot better. I mean, there were still some issues going on back in 2018 and 2019. We know the stock market was also stuck in traffic on struggle street for a lot of 2018. But one of the interesting things is that the normalized ROI for ADA from the peak as it stands today is currently, you know, somewhere it's less than 80% or it's more than 80%, meaning it's like, you know, 80, 85%, something like that. But what you'll notice is that at the same time, after the same exact period of time, after the first peak back in early 2018, we would have already seen ADA's ROI be closer to being, as crazy as it sounds, 94% down, which does make a big difference when you're talking about, you know, 84% or 85% versus 90 something percent. And if you don't believe me, again, just don't take my word for it. Let's just go verify what we're talking about here. So if you measure the ROI from ADA from this cycle going all the way down, it went down 98%. By the time that we were at this month in the prior bear market, we know we're 1 month ahead of schedule in terms of where the bear market sits. It would correspond to July. Now in July of 2018, you can see that ADA was actually around down over 90%, right? Approximately, I mean at the low, it was down around 92%. That is actually a really big difference. So let me compare it to today. Right now, ADA is down about 85%, right? About 85%. However, that corresponds to about a 47-cent ADA. If ADA were down 92%, which it was during the last bear market after the same amount of time, it would correspond to an ADA that would be trading at just over 20 cents, or another 50% correction from where we currently are. Sometimes I think people look at percentages and think like 85% is really close to, you know, being 92% down. But if something's down 85%, in order to go down to that level that would get it down to say 92% or so, you would be talking about, you know, another 50% correction or so. So it does make a big difference. There's a huge difference between something being 85% down and something being 95% down. So going back to the chart, I mean, I know bear markets aren't fun, but you can learn a lot from them. And I do see relative strength by ADA compared to the ADA USD valuation during the last bear market. I mean, it still sucks, right? I mean, it still sucks either way because it's a bear market and ADA is 85% down from the prior all-time high. But when you compare it to the last bear market, you can see that it is showing some relative strength compared to its prior self 4 years ago. And also, what it also would suggest is that if we were to fast forward in our head, you know, 3-4 months or so, we would probably be getting into a more obvious accumulation phase for ADA. Now, I'm not going to say that buying ADA at 40 cents or something isn't going to work out in the long term. I mean, for full disclosure, back during the last bear market, I started buying ADA again at this point right here. Okay. And I thought it was a relatively good price back then, but it did not stop us. And the reason I did was because we were already like 95% down. I mean, 95% down is a lot. But the crazy thing is that we ended up going down 98%, right? We ended up going down around 98%. Let me fix this. Around 98%. But you can see that being 95% down, to get to 98% down here, you still have to go down another 50 or 60%. So it makes a big difference, right? A 90% drop, again, is a really big difference between a 95% drop, which is very different from a 98% drop. So, in hindsight, was buying ADA at 8 cents and at 10 cents in mid to late 2018, was it a decent buy over a 2 to 3 year time frame? Absolutely. However, it would not have stopped you from feeling the immediate pain in the short term that would have happened just a few months later, okay, where you saw another 50 to 60% correction. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that ADA's market cycle bottom is in, when as a function of time, we can see that it hasn't even reached that point, whereas last cycle it hit a major bottom. We know it actually hit a lower low during the drop that occurred much later. But arguably, one of the things I've previously said, and I hope people don't misunderstand, I have said that bull markets make you money, bear markets make you rich. And some people sort of misunderstand that to say that you should just YOLO everything into every altcoin dip. That's not what I mean. When I say that, and I've said this many, many times, the reason bear markets make you rich is because they lead to the accumulation phase that follows the bear market. And that is what ultimately makes you rich, is if you can accumulate during an accumulation phase, which again follows the bear market, theoretically speaking, again, not financial advice, but if you can accumulate during the accumulation phase that follows the bear market, that's ultimately where a lot of the money is made. If you wait until after the bull market occurs, or we're already knee deep in it, you're playing with fire at that point, and we simply do not know exactly how high it'll go. Remember, during the last bull market, everyone had all sorts of predictions for where not only ADA would go, but also Bitcoin, Ethereum, and everything else. And myself included. I'm myself included. And ultimately, no one really knows exactly where the top is going to be. But as I've said before, most of the real money is made by the people that step in and accumulate after the bear market. Okay? If you YOLO'd all your money into ADA, at every bounce, then by the time it got to the bottom, you just simply would not have had anything left to put in. What you can see is, as a function of time compared to the prior bear market, we are getting closer to the accumulation phase. Okay, so again, if you're looking at, say, like a macro outlook, is buying ADA at 40 cents a decent level in terms of, say, like a 3 to 4 year time period down the road? There's a good chance it is. However, we also know that ADA is in current downtrend against the US dollar, right? You can see it's in a clear downtrend against the US dollar. And I mean, of course, trying to catch the falling knife is in fact a very difficult thing to try and do, if history is an indication, and 2018 taught us that as well. And so I do want people to recognize that. And I think the other thing, just briefly to continue to look at for ADA is also its Bitcoin valuation. I've covered this a number of times. To me, it seems like ADA Bitcoin is an oscillator, which is not a bad thing. I mean, a lot of altcoins just go down against Bitcoin over the macro scale. So an oscillator is actually a fairly good place to be. And if it is an oscillator, then and the ADA Bitcoin valuation ends up coming back down to these lower levels, remember, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to bleed against the US dollar for that entire period of time. It just means it might bleed against Bitcoin for a while. And one of the things you'll notice is that the ADA USD bottom that occurred in December 2018 actually occurred here. The ADA Bitcoin bottom didn't occur until about half a year after Bitcoin bottomed against the US dollar, meaning ADA underperformed Bitcoin during that 2019 rally. It wasn't until after that ADA Bitcoin started to go back up again. So one of the other ways you can look at this, you can go to the daily time frame and look at things like the 200-day moving average and recognize that a lot of times during these bear markets, ADA Bitcoin does get rejected by the 200-day moving average. It got rejected back in January, and it's potentially getting rejected back here. And to just show you clearly how that doesn't necessarily mean that ADA USD has to go down, if you look at January, of, if you go back and look at, say, January of 2022, what you'll notice is that during that time, Bitcoin actually started going back up, not down. Okay, so January is right here. So this Bitcoin started to go back up. That's when ADA Bitcoin started to go back down. And ADA USD starting in January, you can see that actually it was going down, right? I mean, it had some of these dead cat bounces in here, but it actually was going down. So sometimes it could just be because Bitcoin's bouncing that really sends the ADA Bitcoin valuation further down quickly. And in this case, it was actually even more pronounced because Bitcoin was going up and ADA was going down. Therefore, the ADA Bitcoin valuation went down a lot quicker. So I do hope that this provides some perspective on the market. I know that measuring things from the prior all-time high into a bear market isn't necessarily the most fun to do, but if you're at least still watching this video after everything that ADA has been through over the last, say, 6 months or so, then hopefully you can at least stick around for a more convincing accumulation phase. And arguably, we are very, very close to that accumulation phase. And as I said, I mean, a 40-cent ADA is still 85% down from the prior all-time high. And certainly myself from the last bear market would have already been more interested. But as time goes on, these bear markets tend to make you more and more risk averse. So just something to consider. Remember, if you guys want access to this as well as a number of other charts, we have it at intothecryptoverse.com. So check it out. We currently have the sale still going on. All right, guys, I think we'll wrap it up there. Make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.